Welcome to the What's Your Deal podcast, where we discuss business acquisitions, investments, management, and exit strategies. I'm your host, Matt Euler. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of What's Your Deal. Today, I'm excited to have a guest, Jeff Dudan, who has a very deep background in franchising. And so I'm really excited about having him with us today because so many of our audience are focused on buying businesses and some selling businesses as well. But part of what I love about franchising is that when designed correctly, somebody else has already invented that wheel, it's rolling. And then as a prospective buyer of a franchise, you can step right into that model and have a much greater likelihood of success than a typical startup. So with Jeff joining us here, I'm going to give you an introduction and then we're going to learn from the gems he has to share. So Jeff is the CEO of HomeFront Brands and the chairman of Dudan Group, where he helps franchise companies grow through smart strategy, investment, and leadership. Jeff is also the author of Discernment, the business athlete's regimen for a great life through better decisions. He's a Forbes contributor and a trusted advisor to emerging franchise brands. He originally founded AdvantaClean in 1994 and scaled it to a national franchise with more than 240 locations before its successful acquisition in 2019. Many people also recognize Jeff from his appearance on season 8 of The Undercover Boss. He's a lifelong entrepreneur whose journey started as a college athlete, launching his first business, and today he's one of the leading voices in franchising and business leadership. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Matt, what a great intro. What is the deal?
Right. You know, it's funny when we came up with this podcast and that title, which of course my business partner, Sarah Rainwater, was hugely instrumental in designing. The name is just all encompassing because we've had all sorts of guests on with all kinds of background. And the What's Your Deal, I just love it because it's like behind the curtain. Like it's so great to understand what motivates people and how they've gotten to where they are. So we're excited to have you today and especially this deep dive into franchising.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you get to meet people. I have a podcast myself. And it's so valuable because I get to explore my own curiosities. Mm-hmm. And it's what I found it to be one of the most cathartic and important things for me to do, especially as I've gotten older in my career. And you never really appreciate what went into their success, their startup, their business, because you just see it in the public. I had Jeff Hoffman on a couple of weeks ago. And he was the founder of Priceline and Booking.com, and he invented the kiosks, airport. Every time you check in at the airlines, like he invented that. He was an engineer. He hated it, and then he invented that because he stood in line. And remember when you used to stand in line for a flight, and you have to get a ticket, and you didn't have another choice. You didn't have an app. You had nothing on your phone. And he was in line for an hour, and he missed his flight. And you just missed your flight, No refund, no nothing. You just missed your flight. And he got so frustrated by that he's like, there's no reason these people should have to check us in. We should be able to do it ourselves. So, which led to Priceline.com, which led to Booking.com, which is a $160 billion business. And
wow,
it's just that one experience led him to focus on travel for the rest of his life.
That's amazing. And I found that everybody's got a great story. What we often hear is just the success, right? But in reality, most people have climbed and clawed and whatever they needed to along the way to stack wins to get to an outcome like that. So that's a great story.
Yeah, Seinfeld said it great. There's the muffin top that we see, but you need the stump.
I had not heard that before. That's great.
Yeah, man, you can't just make muffin tops, man. You got to have the stump.
Isn't that the truth? Well, so tell us about you. How did you get started in this world? And if you would, walk us through 240 locations is a significant accomplishment. So fill us in. What's your muffin stump?
Yeah. So I was, it wasn't, excuse me, wasn't pretty. And so I was kind of a wayward student, typical entrepreneurial profile. I was an athlete. I started playing football late in my career because I realized basketball wasn't going anywhere. So I started playing football as like a junior in high school. chased a football around through college, which eventually in my third try got me to Appalachian State University, where I successfully I grew up in Chicago, so I went to the farthest place I could on top of a mountain in a dry county, if that tells you anything. Let me get out of Chicago and go somewhere that I think I can focus on my studies and maybe get a degree. And started the painting business there, was very successful, winning all the student housing apartment contracts using athletes that were taking classes over to Summer to Paint. Cut my teeth in the insurance restoration business in 92 and 93 and 94 in South Florida after Hurricane Andrew. And then myself and 3 partners started a business that I would sell 25 years later called AdvantaClean. It was a restoration, remediation, mold remediation, emergency water damage, air duct cleaning type business. So we called it light environmental services.
Yeah, very good. Well, and I'm familiar with that industry. It can be challenging because most often it's emergency, right? So that's round the clock. Yeah.
Well, that was the thing I would ask franchise candidates. I said, are you willing to get out of bed in the middle of the night to make $5,000 or $10,000 at an 85% margin? And if the answer is absolutely, then you might be a fit for us.
Yeah. So when you started that, I'm assuming you started as an operator in that business and then found that it was duplicatable, and that's when you franchised it, or how did that evolve?
I wish I was an operator. I think it was more of a technician.
Okay.
Actually, when we started the business, there was 4 of us. In all honesty, I was the marketing guy.
Okay.
I did end up with a marketing degree. I was probably the most salesy and the least technical of the group. So I started as the marketing guy, and we started in Central Florida. And then I moved up to North Carolina to get married and start my family in 1995, our second year in business. And I started a location here, and we very quickly grew to a $10 to $20 million a year business, doing governmental contracting nationally and even internationally. We worked a lot in the Caribbean with the U.S. government on military bases. We worked in VA hospitals. We ended up being a big box retailer, national account. So places like Lowe's or Home Depot or American Eagle or Baby Gap, we would have national contracts for emergency services with companies like that. And then we had offices that worked locally, just like your ServPro or ServiceMaster in Orlando, in Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina, Columbia, and in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that's kind of how that was the first 10 years. That was kind of our muffin stump, struggling through learning the business. I bought all of my partners out during that time, and in 2004. And now, interesting, I started the business with the intention of making it a franchise company, because I had observed in South Florida during the hurricane that all of the businesses that were doing well were part of a franchise system. So when we started in 1994, I said, this is great. You guys are constructors, you're technical. I said, but I want to build a franchise company. And they humored me. I'm like, sure, Jeff, you can do that. Well, a lack of focus will always lead to a lack of greatness. And on one hand, the business was growing well, but on the other hand, there were no resources allocated to the franchise program, which we started trying to launch in the year 2000. After I bought my last partner out, I brought in some consultants and I said, look, I want to franchise this thing, but I also want to expand our direct commercial governmental services. So as a result of that engagement, we invested in semi-trucks and tractor trailers and generators on wheels. And sure enough, that preparation met opportunity. Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast in 2005, and we went out there for an extended 9-figure storm response over the next 4 years. And that's when I came to an inflection point. And a lot of people that come to franchising, they know that they want to be in business ownership. They know that they want to be the one. One of the leading indicators of success as an entrepreneur is an early entrepreneurial experience or exposure. You watched a father or a mother or a cousin or an aunt or an uncle in business, and you observed what they had to do to kind of build their small business. And you learn those lessons, so it seemed natural for you to start a business. But for franchising, many people come right out of corporate America. Many people, they are the one. They're the first one in their family to actually own a business. So not only are they taking a step that can change their life, they're taking a step to influence the people that are watching that they might not really have understood is going to be an impact of that business. So for me, I went down there, I started I led the storm response, and I was driving back in the middle of the night, and I had 3 young children at the time. And the reason I was driving back was because I was missing my son's first football season. So I left Gulfport, Mississippi at night. It was 2:00 in the morning, and I'm driving through Atlanta. And you know how it was? We didn't have podcasts. We didn't have, we had radio, we had cassette tapes, and we were alone with our thoughts. So I was driving through the middle of the night, and I just realized, just clear as day, history is repeating itself. I'm an absentee father. I'm in the Caribbean. I'm in Hawaii. I'm in California. The business is growing. I own 100% of it now. The demands of the business are taking over, but I've got this franchise program. And I also knew that at heart, I had a real heart for coaching. I said, here's what I'm going to do. I made the decision in the middle of the night. I'm going to sell all of our franchise stores, all of our locations under the franchise model to new owners. It's called refranchising. And then I was going to use that money to invest in the franchise program and commit to it. And if for anybody out there that, if you look back at your life and you've had 3 or 4 inflection points, maybe, they always have 3 things that are associated with these inflection points. Number 1, you've got people that you care about or people that you're responsible for. Maybe it's people that you want to do something with, or maybe it's people that you want to get away from. There's people always involved in an inflection point, forcing a decision. The second thing is there's an adventure or an opportunity at hand to do something bigger, better, or greater. And the third thing is there's always a risk of loss. And the older I get in life, the more I know that my success is more about the things that I take away than the things that I actually add, because your plate runneth over with opportunity. And again, if you don't focus on the most important things, they tend to be, we all have the right to be mediocre, but it's not an obligation. It's a right to be mediocre, but it should not be an aspiration. So I knew that getting rid of our locations that were operating locally would give me not only the capital, it would give me the bandwidth to focus on the franchise program. So that's what I did. We sold our locations in 2006, 7, and 8. We launched the franchise to the public marketplace in 2009. We looked really good because we had been working with these few franchise owners, refining the program for a few years. And then I sold the business January 1st, 2019 with 240 locations in 37 states.
So there's so much in what you just said. I mean, I'm not sure we're going to get it all done in the time we have, because man, there's a lot there. So a couple things that I want to point out, and I'm going to walk through them, and then again, we'll just dialogue about them. But number 1 is a lot of our audience are existing business owners that are trying to figure out how to scale. And franchising is an option. And you've done that, right? And so I'd like to talk more about that. The other thing you mentioned is that you started out with partners and you bought them all out. I've got quite a few partners myself. And one of the things that I believe is true is that a lot of people go into partnerships expecting that they will last forever, and they don't have a plan or understand really when it's time to move on. So if you're open to talking about that, that's something that people could get some insight from. And then
I have a model for that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I want to drill into, which is at my age has become such a huge focus of mine. And I heard you talk about it too, where you had missed your son's game. Mm-hmm. And there does become a point in an entrepreneur's journey, at least in a lot of them, where chasing that next tallest mountain and getting to the peak is wonderful. And the people in our lives that are family and close. And it's, unfortunately in my life, there have been times where I lost sight of how important that was to me. And I'm constantly trying to correct the desire to, climb the next biggest mountain and make sure I'm grounded and rooted in the people that are just most important to me. So there's 3 amazing topics that are not part of the outline we originally talked about. But if you're willing to go down that road, there's just huge value there.
Yeah, let me talk about the partner one, because many people that get into a franchise, they come with a partner, and sometimes it's a spouse. And oftentimes I like it when people come with partners because they can divide and conquer, and they can support one another. However, sometimes it doesn't go well. Mm-hmm. And I think as long as people are working within their true skill set, and you don't try to say, well, here's a role and here's you, but it doesn't fit. That's usually when it goes poorly.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're working with family, you have to make sure that they're a good fit for the role. And as if would you hire them for the role if they weren't family? The other thing about selecting partners, and this is something I talk to my kids about, and I've learned how many hard lessons with partners, but the first thing you need to know is, how do people make their money? Okay. So if you want to go from the employment perspective, if people have been employees, they're either team contributors or individual contributors. Like a lot of IT people, they work all night. They don't work well as teams. They're individual contributors. They have towering strengths, but they're not going to be the one that's going to be a great teammate, or much less building or leading a team. Team contributors are great because they like to work together. They like to collaborate, all of those things. But now you get into more the entrepreneurial things. Is somebody a creator? If somebody's a creator, like your artists, like your bloggers, maybe your influencers, people that have a creative streak. And, if they're a creative, they're generally going to be less likely to do the books, to follow processes, to do things like that. So if people are used to just doing creative things and then maybe not following all the way through on the boring details, that's something to know. Is somebody a transactor? Like, I've gotten in trouble building businesses with transactors because I'm a enterprise builder. So I start with the biggest, boldest future, just like it says on my mug here. I speak a bold future into existence, and I work backwards. And I'm like, who are the people I'm going to need? What are the resources I'm going to need? What are systems I'm going to need? What is the problem that we solve? Who is the customer? And most importantly, this is the question people never ask: who is the natural owner for the business that I'm building? Like, that's a McKinsey question. Like, before you ever start building something, if you inform who is the natural owner for this, you will build the business differently than had you not asked that question. That's a really, really important question for an enterprise builder like me to build. But if I go into business with a transactor and I will say, we need to invest in these capabilities because it's important, a transactor will say, no, we need to make money on every transaction, and it doesn't matter. So transactors build profitable businesses today that sometimes struggle to scale because they won't make the investment. They'll underinvest in team and people and talent and capabilities because they're just not going to break the budget. And, sometimes business doesn't make sense early. I mean, the hours that you work to launch a business, so those are some things about picking right partners: is understand how they make their money. And if they're an individual contributor or a team contributor, maybe they're better as a contractor or an employee than a business partner.
Quick pause from the episode to thank today's sponsor, Amped Funding Advisors. We only partner with businesses we believe in, so we're grateful for their support. And if you're buying a business and need smart SBA financing or creative deal structuring, their team helps buyers get funded the right way with clarity and confidence. And if you own a business and you want to sponsor What's Your Deal, check the show notes for details on how to apply. Now let's get back to the episode. Yeah, the great distinctions. And we could probably do, I don't know exactly how many partners I have, but probably somewhere in the vicinity of 60 or 70 right at the moment. And so we could probably do a whole episode on what we've seen work, because I'm sure a lot of the people who became franchisees were partnerships. And so my guess is your depth of knowledge is very deep in that department.
Yeah, we have a lot of experience. I've had in the 7 businesses I've built, I've had over 800 franchise owners that I've worked with personally. And then I've been involved in another dozen brands. So yeah, it's important. And, foundationally, getting the people piece right early is critically important.
It sure is. Yes. Well, very good. So thank you for sharing that. So talk with me a little bit about you had this business. It was clearly doing very well in a proximity of a customer base that needed your service on a regular basis, right? And being in Florida with all of the storms and things that happen there. So what did that look like, going from, okay, great model, making it duplicatable and saleable to others? Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. So we intentionally opened remote locations the first one was just, guys, I'll start this business with you in Orlando, but we've decided we're going to live in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that decision. But what it does is it creates immediately the necessity to duplicate proven processes and systems. So from the very beginning, having 2 locations was great because we did try to share resources. We did share call center. We did share phone answering. Some of the emergency services would be faxed on a thermal fax up to my location if it came in overnight. And then we had somebody that got in early and would call those customers in Orlando and were the ability to schedule and book. We were growing the business as technology was becoming available really for the first time in doing things like that. So that was really, really important. But, at the end of the day, a good franchisor is a marketing organization. It's a branding organization. It's an adult learning organization. And it's a mergers and acquisitions organization. We at HomeFront Brands have been very successful. I mean, I went out, just for context, what is HomeFront Brands? I went out and bought 4 businesses in the end of 21, beginning of 22. We had 20 franchise owners. We platformed them all of 22. We went to market in 23 and we did about $30 million in franchise sales, about 230 new owners, over about 800 markets and 17 in Canada over the next 30 months.
Wow.
So that's exceptional. But, we went out and hired the chief legal officer from ServiceMaster. We went and got an executive team that had all built or worked at multi-billion-dollar, multi-brand property service platforms. Then we hired brand presidents that had all built national companies before. So we went with leadership. We filled in 70 people around them. And we looked good. We looked the part. And we were able to attract just this wonderful cohort of sophisticated, committed, well-capitalized, serious franchise owners. Mm-hmm. And we aspire to, and the brands that we all got, that we went for, have the ability to do, they're large businesses. Mm-hmm. They're complicated businesses. So if you're a sophisticated business owner and you've made money and you have other businesses perhaps, you're going to look at these businesses and say, those are worth doing. Mm-hmm. So we had to have the right offerings. So if we start with the decision that we want to be a $5 billion company in half the time that it took the closest competitor to get there, then it starts with, these are who the owners need to be. Well, then the next decision, working backwards from that future, is then what are the brands they're going to be interested in? We can only have those brands. And then what is the team we need to support it? What is the capital structure that we're going to need to build it fast? And then what are the mechanisms to create transactions? Because what happens over time in a franchise system is you get onesies, twosies, family operators in there, and they're allowed to muddle along for a long time. But at HomeFront Brands, we're a brand of outcomes. So we are looking to take advantage of this very frothy consolidation, M&A, PE type, search fund type environment that we're in, and let people invest and build their franchise to a certain point. But if there's a way for them to have an incredible outcome and sell their business in year 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, then we want to bring that to them. And they've just changed their life in that way. Or we would love to have franchise owners grow big and stay in the system for 10 or 20 years. So at HomeFront Brands, we had to, working backwards from that future, the people, the brands, the marketing support, the systems that we put in place had to scale from day one. We couldn't have a switching cost of bad systems or, siloed type systems. So we had to really invest ahead of revenue in that, had to get the people involved, but we also had to create the expectation with our owners that we're here for your outcomes and that, we need to drive twice as many transactions, resales, consolidations, mergers in half the time. To accomplish the goal we needed to accomplish. So, for me, it all really, what franchising has done with AdvantaClean and now with HomeFront Brands, is it's given me, the workshop and the laboratory to really understand scale and how to unleash capital for people who are courageous enough to start a business with us.
Yeah, that's fascinating, because a couple things that jump out at me about what you're saying is your ability, the way your mind works, to reverse engineer where you want to go. is great. So many business owners, myself included, oftentimes get so focused on the fire that's burning the hottest right in front of me.
Right.
And it can be hard to change that mindset from working in the business to on the business. And what I'm hearing from you is that you designed this from day one with the outcome in mind, which is powerful. The other thing that I'm hearing, because I've helped lots of people over the years buy and sell lots of different franchises, and the majority of them, the franchisors, didn't have what your brand does, which is this bigger picture in the ability to scale. It was much more focused on one location after another. And in some cases, the franchisor even saturated the territory and they just cut up the pie. And so one of the things I'm curious about with your brand is, how do you manage that? How do you manage the sale of new franchisees and locations in a way that allows them to thrive? And clearly they have their support, but to thrive without getting what I've seen franchisors get so caught up in just trying to sell locations that then it can implode on itself.
The problem that you're speaking about is generally in retail-based locations. So QSRs, food, fitness sometimes. I think, I can name a fitness concept that had lots and lots and lots of locations stacked on top of each other. And they cannibalize the customer base a little bit. And now you've got, hey, I want to move to this gym or studio. I want to move to this one. But I mean, generally, people will travel 12 minutes to go to a workout. Like, that's the rule of thumb. So if it's outside of 12 minutes, you probably need another gym. And as far as QSR goes, for me, it's about access. I mean, I'm not going to drive even 3 miles to go to Wendy's up at exit 28. If I'm at exit 25, I'm going to pick something at exit 25. So just because, if you think about it, like you're just, in many instances, I would side with the franchisor because they're just going to go to Jack in the Box as opposed to drive up to your Wendy's, or we can keep it in the family and we can put a Wendy's right down here at exit 25. So, but I mean, I've seen it. There's been some cases where, with some oil change places where they get really saturated and stuff like that. But generally in our business, because we're home and property service, we do have one of our brands, the Designery, which is a kitchen, bath, and closet brand, does have a physical location. It's like a very cool Apple store. And it's got teledesign that we can do remotely. And it's got VR headsets and, very cool look and feel if you go into a Designery. But it's not in a very expensive lease. It's in a Class B space. It's a destination. It doesn't have to be in the most expensive strip center next to, Needless Markup or any of these other retailers. So that's what my dad used to call Neiman Marcus. But right. Bless his soul. Yeah, he was great. I never knew what he was talking about, but now I do, because I have great shoes. But for us, we have a territory structure that's very intentional and deliberate. So you buy, 1, 2, or 3 of our territories. They operate as one business. Okay. And you're just buying basically access to more zip codes inside of that. So that's how it works for us. We can't put somebody right on top of you. And then we have very insightful 30 years of experience territory guidelines that help our owners all be successful together. I work with emerging brands all the time. I just went out and did a keynote for a really sharp brand out in Tulsa, Oklahoma last Friday. And there's so many great little brands, but like they just they make these fundamental mistakes. Territories are too big. You don't have the right language for how, if somebody can't service something, how somebody else comes in to serve it, because that's good for the brand. So when you have all the right mechanisms in place, it creates an environment to where resales, you haven't cut your resale market off. At the end of the day, we have 260, 270 owner groups operating now. We're just a population. We've had cancer. We've had divorce. We've had rehab. We've had a suicide. We've had a family die in a plane crash. Like, there are reasons that people need to get out of their business. And a franchise gives people the opportunity to play monopoly within our system, grow, acquire territories, add trucks, add salespeople without adding a location, continue to gain market share, and to play this game of monopoly and build wealth. And that's one thing I work with is the role that a business plays in your family's wealth strategy. And it gives you the ability, if it's a good franchisor, that there is demand for your business if you are forced to sell it for some reason. Some people say, I got to move halfway across the country. My mom's got cancer. I'm going to spend the last 2 years with her. I just can't run the business anymore. Mm-hmm. So if we're focused on outcome, then we don't say, well, you're abandoning the business, you lose it, which a lot of franchisors would just say. You lose it, we'll sell it to somebody new. We say, we're going to work day and night and day to sell this business and get you the money out of it that you deserve to go on to your next thing. And we'll forego that money ourselves to put that money in the franchise owner's pocket. And that's a precedent that we know that we want to set and that we want to be known for.
Well, and clearly the distinctions that you're talking about are ones that I've seen on the other side. And so it's refreshing to hear how you've solved so many of those problems going in. To point out some of them, I've a lot of the people who contact me want to sell their business, and it could be a franchise as an example. And depending on what the franchisor did with the territory, or depending on some of how difficult they make it for that transaction to happen, people have sometimes found themselves stuck. And again, these are franchises that didn't have their systems in place like what you're describing. So the fact that you are going into these with those considerations up front is just so powerful.
Look, man, people are always fine as long as they know where they stand. Mm-hmm. From the very first call, I do a Monday night call, and anybody who's in our pipeline, we sometimes have 300 people in our pipeline. There might be 20 people on this call every Monday night that are getting ready to come in and visit us here in Huntersville, North Carolina. I tell them this from the beginning. As long as people are told the consistent truth and reality of what's going to happen, they never become disenfranchised. Mm-hmm. So as long as this is what we do, this is what we're standing, this is the opportunity, we're going to push you. You're hiring us to push you. You're hiring us to build a big business, and we don't expect you to come here and work with us until you die. If you can build this in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 9 years, take all the capabilities that you've gained, take all the money you made along the way, and take whatever you can get for the business, which is whatever outcome you've earned and deserve at that point in time, and go and leverage that into a balanced portfolio for your family and your life. Then you have used this business to accomplish what you needed to. Mm-hmm. And that's the goal. And we're going to work whatever your personal outcome is. That's what we're going to work towards. And it is refreshing because most people are just get in, do the business, pay us royalties. We get paid on top line, so we'd appreciate it if you do more. Mm-hmm. But that's not what the business is about. It's about making a material shift in this family's economic future.
Yeah, and the culture that I'm hearing and what you're describing is much more of a team, a partnership arrangement, as opposed to sometimes franchisor is the franchisor. They call all the shots, they make all the rules, they decide what you're going to spend if you're a franchisee. And what you're describing is much more collaborative than a lot of what's out there. So that's just
and
really
sometimes we love each other like part spouses, and other times we fight like brothers.
Right.
But look, people talk about franchisee satisfaction. I don't want you to be satisfied. The best business owners are irritable. They're urgent. They're impatient. They want to push. They want to demand and say, why is this number not what it needs to be? Or where do I get the right information? Mm-hmm. So we replace franchisee satisfaction with franchisee experience.
Oh, that's excellent. So let me ask you this. We've got people in our audience that are contemplating wanting to get into their first business and buying a business. And so if somebody's interested in franchising, what do you suggest they look towards, and what should they avoid as they're trying to determine who they want to align with? Because once they align, they're usually in. I mean, they've made a strong commitment to that brand. So can you speak into that for us?
Man, Matt, this answer could go so many different ways. And look, there are a thing out there called franchise brokers and consultants. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they call themselves coaches. They take a fee from the franchisor for placement. They can really help. and they can be really educational. Sometimes they'll just push you to the biggest fee for them. So I think you have to really, but they have tools, and the best ones that do lots of deals, they get referrals from their previous customer. So they do a good job of understanding who you are and then they do the work on the brands to make sure that it's just not this looks good on paper or looks good in the marketing brand, but they've really got the underlying support, coaching, infrastructure, all of the things, the performance. They'll teach you how to read the FDD and make sure that you understand what you're looking at and how to evaluate it. So, and maybe 20% of the deals outside of hotels and restaurants are done with these consultants. Otherwise, you're going to be on your own working with the brand, and you need to do a follow the process and do kind of a full evaluation of, what is the financial performance? Does the business meet your financial needs and goals? Does it fit your lifestyle? I think Brian Tracy said the easiest way to ride a horse is in the direction that it's going. So is it something that you're already good? Do you have, like, if it's a sales business, okay, do you have sales capabilities that are going to make it a home run for you? And here's something interesting. I don't want the best salesperson in my businesses that would require great sales. I look for somebody that's been a sales manager.
Okay.
So sales management chops. So they come in right away. They're like, I know how to recruit, train, hire, hold accountable, kick out, and manage. And they grow teams of salespeople, and they are honestly our best performers if you have sales management capabilities. So that's really an interesting distinction, right? Well, let's just teach them sales. But no, let's teach them sales management and give them the tools for that. So, but if you the worst reason to buy a donut franchise is because you like to eat donuts. I mean, it's, the worst reason to buy one of our designeries is because, you like to make the carpet match the drapes. You got to look at the mechanics of the business, what it's going to take. And, is it a good fit? Look, this keynote I did was at this amazing dog training franchise. They have twice the numbers of everybody else in the industry. They have 29 franchise owners. It's like a big family, and they all are passionate about training dogs in this method. So passion does help, but that will be a brand that may struggle to scale with many of their owners because they got into it to do the thing. So there's a reason that finance people make a lot of money, is because they speak the language of money. So just know, if you go into a business, take an honest assessment of what your capabilities are, what your role in the business is going to be, but then make sure, surround yourself with a good marketer or salesperson if you don't have it. Surround yourself with good finance, or learn financial IQ. Focus on that as a capability. But the good news is that once you step across the line, like onto a football field when I came off the road, I coached over 30 seasons of my kids' sports. Wow. That was one of the things. And the time in the car was instrumental to our family and what it's meant to all of us. And, once you step across the line, do not allow yourself to recontract with yourself. Whatever it is you choose to do, it's like when you start a podcast. Don't expect results for 3 years. You need to build an audience. Once you step across the line, you got to block, you got to tackle, you got to get on the loose fall. You don't recontract with yourself. And that gets to the kind of the business athletes thing. I saw you had a question on there. What is a business athlete, and why did I write the book Discernment? I wrote the book Discernment so that people at inflection points could understand what are the filters that you should personally build and use in making the most important decisions of your life. And that's powerful. What discernment is. It's wisdom. Discernment is simply wisdom accumulated over a lifetime based on your experiences. And now you have the ability to make better decisions. But if you're not disciplined and intentional about what are your personal values, I have a set of values that we had on our family refrigerator for 15 years, and you don't think that they were listening until one falls out of their mouth in making an important decision in their life. Then you realize that underlying it is they understand what our family values were and how they prosecute those in their life. So that's what decision. And then the thing about being a business athlete, why would people come in and they invest half of their 401k in a franchise, and they show up to training and they haven't even watched the damn videos. Like, how much do you need to train and prepare if you want to win in building a team to be a top rail fence franchisee or designery franchisee? Like, you can't just show up. You're not an employee anymore. Like, I'm going to wait to be told what to do and then do the minimum and think it's going to work for you. So business, my observation is I always look for the best athlete on the field, and that's who I hire. And I have ways that I test for that. And I don't care if they have the skills, because if they have the capabilities and the drive, that's who I'm going to pick, because the best athletes will always make the biggest plays in the big games.
Well, there's great. I mean, there's so many gems in there that I would love to dive into. And with the time we have allowed, we're going to be a little bit limited, but I do.
This is a 6-part series, Matt.
Yes. Well, and I think it sure could be, because I'm the kind that appreciates the distinctions. The masses are doing what the masses do. The top performers are focused on the little things that others are not willing to do or don't know how to do. And that's what oftentimes makes the difference. And what you just shared points out so many of those, the power of the decisions. Are they emotional? Are they strategic? Are they intentional, decisive? All of those things. Do you stick with them? Do you, go back to the beginning of the line over and over again because you hop out? I mean, there's so much there. So let me ask you another question specifically about how you evaluate people and their ability to make these decisions. And at this point, maybe it's not you, but you've, I'm sure, had lots of opportunities to interview franchisees or prospective franchisees. When has it come up where you've said, you know what, I don't think this is best for you? And why is that? Why should people turn away from becoming either a franchisee or a business owner? When do you make that call?
Well, there's, I've got a little model. It's really 4 C's. I mean, I thought you were going to, like, when I do an employee interview.
Yeah.
So I have stuff for that, but a new business owner will scale their business to their level of comfort, their level of competence, their level of commitment, and their level of capitalization. Okay. So comfort, just call it fear. All right. You build this model. The math is the path. Okay. Here is a stack of numbers that says leads come in the top, a bunch of things, conversions happen. There's an average cost per lead, an average job size, and at the bottom comes out a revenue number. Once you get that built, if you double the number of leads and everything else stays the same, you're going to double the money you're making on the top line and the bottom line. So once you have the mechanism built, now are you courageous enough? But you can't just buy the leads. Not all leads are created equal. So some of them are going to have to be earned. Some are going to be referred, but some are going to be bought. But you can't just buy the leads. At the same time, you have to hire another salesperson. You might have to invest in another truck. You might have to invest in another production crew, because you can't just have more leads and no more capacity. So, we have a performance coaching grid that goes up through 5 levels that says, okay, when you're getting to the next level, you've got to do these 5 things at the same time. And you got to have the guts to do it. And what happens is people that are uncomfortable, they nibble at it, and it's not working because they didn't invest all at the same time. So then they fall back to their previous level of sales. And that money maybe becomes wasted or not optimized. So, where is your level of comfort to be too stupid to fail, to say, well, it's working here. I see the plan. I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to commit to it. And I refuse to lose. And I know that things are going to break when the new volume starts coming in, and I might have to switch some people out, but I am going to rush to the conflict and deal with it. And those are the people that just grow infinitely. They just follow the plan to the next logical level. From a competency perspective, if math is science, then people are art. And so every business has $1 per person. So as the business owner, it's your job to collect referral partners, employees, installers, loyal customers, all the people in your community that need to know who you are personally, why you did this business, and what the experience is going to be like when it goes well or doesn't go well with your business, why should they refer you? The more people that you can put inside of your dream where some of their dream gets serviced within it, the bigger business you can grow. So your competence as a leader in being able to articulate, speak, to do things like we're doing here today. I'm a massive introvert. I had to grow the ability to speak in front of people, to speak publicly. I don't care where this is going. I don't even think about it. You and I are having a conversation. I don't know how big your audience is or what you're going to do with this. There could be hundreds of thousands of people that ultimately listen to this thing over time. And sometimes that happens. But, I have to build competence in all the things to grow an organization that's capable of scaling and have more people for my dollars per person to serve. And then commitment, don't get into a business and think, one business is good, 3 businesses is better. I mean, sure, like people grow collections of businesses, but like not from the beginning. You got to be fully committed to make sure that your business has independence and has the SOPs and has the performance, and that you know how to manage to that outcome. And then capital, but capital's the easiest thing to solve for. I don't know that you agree with that or not. Build a business that makes money, show a 6-month trajectory of a positive trend with all the things. Somebody will give you money. If it's not a bank yet, because you haven't been in business for 2 years, somebody will give you money to invest in those There's always a way to fund positive, healthy growth. And you might have to share some of it. You might have to do it. But like I have found that capital is the easiest thing to get and is also too early in a business, the worst thing you can have. Because you will waste it. The power of broke, buddy. I mean, Damon John, I just met Damon John for the first time at about last month. And dude I didn't appreciate how good his story was until I heard him speak. And, that man understands it, and he's lived it, and he did it. Overnight success, begging people to take pictures with his clothes on for 10 years.
Well, there's a lot there. And the one piece I want to pull out for our audience is fulfillment, right? I mean, all that stuff in place, if you can't fulfill what you promise or what you agree to provide, the whole thing can come tumbling down. And I do agree with you 1,000% on the capital piece. I've certainly seen lots of clients, friends, and colleagues have too much up front and waste it and end up running out. And I've also seen people that once you have a proven model, there is no shortage of capital out there to invest in the right opportunity. So
yeah, and nobody should give money to a crappy business because you can't scale dysfunction.
Very well put.
Well, you can scale dysfunction only if you have more money than you need, and then you will waste it. And cash is like oxygen. You don't know how bad you need it until you don't have any.
And usually they run out at some point. I mean, it only goes on for so long if you can't provide what you're. Yeah. So anyway, great insights. I really appreciate it. One question that's important to me personally that I ask all of my guests is, can you share a story about somebody who's given you a hand up? Somebody who's helped you out when you needed it, believed in you when it was important? Because most people just see the success. They don't see where it went from the beginnings and the roots. Can you share a quick story about somebody who's guided you and helped you?
Absolutely. David Zierfoss was the president of Husqvarna North America. He grew it from $29 million in U.S. sales over 18 years to $530 million. He did that by converting and adding new dealers, because Husqvarna is the largest outdoor power equipment company in the world. Blowers, chainsaws, automatic mowers, robotic mowers, all the things, right? $6 billion company, I think. And when he retired, he started the Vistage Group, which is a CEO group that runs locally in markets. And it was really the first time I met him when I just started franchising in 2009. And I said, what better mentor to have than somebody who had built a company to $500 million through a dealership network to give me insights on how to grow my franchise program. So I was with him for 9 years, and he never said the wrong thing. I mean, it's like he always had that perfect little wisdom anecdote. And anytime that I would spin, I was young, I would spin out of control about a concept or an idea, he would always bring me right back to the foundation and the fundamental. So I think in that is you can never wait too long to get around people who have done already what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. Experience, not advice. Most people get their advice from proximity. A father-in-law, a financial advisor. You pick the people who you happen to just be walking next to and say, well, what do you think about this? They have no experience to give you any type of advice on what you're, and experience, to share experience. And, I don't give people advice. I just share experiences. I share stories. I say, well, I had a similar situation. This happened to me, but if I don't have the experience, I don't just pull some piece of advice out of my butt and say, why don't you try this? I would say, you need to find, this is the who that you need to find who can inform you. Because if you respect me as a business builder and I just made up a piece of advice on something that I had no experience in, you might act on it. And that would probably be a mistake.
Well, that's very well put. Again, lots of gems here. So I really appreciate what you've shared. And I hope that our audience will listen to this a couple of times and really dig deep into some of what's there, because it is so much deeper than what the surface might imply. So thank you for joining us. And so again, from a franchising perspective, I've seen lots of what didn't work and I've seen some of what did work. And what you're describing at HomeFront Brands is absolutely a model that does work and does support growth and scale and opportunity. And so if people want to find you, what's the best way that they can connect with you?
They go to homefrontbrands.com and you have all of our brands on there, information about who we are, many ways to get in touch with us at HomeFront Brands. Just go to homefrontbrands.com. If you want a free copy of my book, which is Discernment, you can go to my Instagram and I have a link on there to get it. It just says, I guess it's one of those links that shows the other links. And then to get a free copy of my book, put your email address in, you get an electronic copy immediately sent to your email. Of course, it's available on Amazon. You can get it there too. LinkedIn, if you want to watch my Undercover Boss episode, connect with me, just Jeff Dudan, JeffDudan on LinkedIn. And in the Vimeo showcase, we put a Vimeo up there, so it's free. 42 minutes of your life you'll never get back, but it's a pretty good episode. It plays a lot. I know when it plays overseas because my social media, I'll get some direct messages from some ladies occasionally. I don't know. I was a younger guy, but it was a really great episode, kind of a tearjerker, and they do play it all the time. Here domestically and also abroad. So it was worth doing if you're into that show and you didn't happen to catch the AdvantaClean episode with me on there. And then, if you want to hear more about what I talked about here, I got 250 episodes sitting on Unemployable Podcast. You can go there, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. We drop a large episode with a great guest. I hope to get Matt on if they'll come on the Unemployable Podcast. And we drop a big episode every Tuesday, and then we do a Franchise Friday, something specific to franchising every Friday. Unemployable with Jeff Dudan, anywhere you get your podcasts.
That is so excellent. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And again, your insights come from enormous experience, and that's where the gems are. So thank you again for joining us today. And I would love to be a guest on your podcast. This conversation is what I really thoroughly enjoy because it shortens the curve for people, right? I have seen, and I'm sure you have, that sometimes when people go the wrong path or they take advice from somebody as opposed to experience and knowledge, it can be financially devastating. And so There's so much here. Thank you again for joining us.
It's been incredible, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll find Jeff for more knowledge in this area. Part of what I love about What's Your Deal is that it just gives us a chance to go behind the curtain. And Jeff definitely brought that for us today. And the insights are certainly invaluable. See you on the next episode. And that's a wrap on today's episode. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and got some valuable insights into the world of buying and selling businesses. Want to be a guest on our show? If you have a deal that you'd like to discuss with us or a business story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email using the contact information below in the episode notes, and let's make this happen. Never miss an episode. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And if you found today's episode helpful, please leave us a review. It helps more people like you find the show.